All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Lasting Learning Podcast. If you're watching this right now, in just a second, you're going to be blown away by seeing the guest that we have with us. If you're listening, you're going to hear a very familiar voice because we have a guest right now who is truly just taking the world by storm. You can't listen to a podcast right now without hearing her voice. You can't log onto Twitter or Facebook without seeing a live broadcast from her. She is truly the live broadcast queen. She is quickly turning into one of my idols in education. And that's a pretty high bar because I admire a lot of amazing people, and she is right up there. Today we got a girl who's coming to us from Illinois, and I'm not going to hold that against her, being a Michigan man. Illinois has got at least one thing going for it, and that is Rae. Rae, thank you for being here with us today.
I am so excited. This is already my favorite podcast.
Well, you got to say it's your second favorite. I mean, well, I don't know. Maybe talking
to
you
rather than talking to
Jeff. Yeah.
I don't think I have to say that.
You're right. You don't. You don't. So we'll just say this is your favorite podcast. Let's just roll with
that. There
we go. So Rae, there might be one or two people in the world that have never heard of you, have never seen you before. Can you just take a quick couple minutes and introduce yourself to the world?
Sure. Here's the basics. Hey, everyone. My name is Rae Hughart. I'm currently a sixth grade math teacher. So I get to have like the mean old math teacher role in Illinois. I work with about 150 kids every single day, and it's outstanding. In addition to that, I'm the director of training and development for the Teach Better team, which for me is just it's an avenue to connect with teachers, to be honest. Like whether I'm doing live Facebook videos, like you said, I do really like those. It's just a great way to connect with people. A lot of the work we do is like going into districts and doing live professional development and kind of building relationships with those teachers and being with them over the course of multiple years to help them reach their students better than ever. Regardless of all that fun, it just allows me to kind of work with students by day and then teachers by nights and on weekends and over the summer.
Right.
And I also have I kind of checked a bucket list. This semester I got to teach a course at Illinois State University, which is my alma mater. So that was kind of fun. So this semester was a little odd because I got to see students in the classroom. I got to see future teachers, and I got to see veteran teachers, sometimes all in one day, which I think people get to do over the course of their career. Being able to do it one semester has kind of been a ball. So it's a really great gig. I love what I do, and I'm stoked to be sharing it with you today.
That's awesome. So for those of you who are just going to be looking at the show notes for this, Rae's last name, I think, kind of encapsulates who she is. If you look at it phonetically, it looks like it's Hughart. And I think every time I hear Rae speak, because I'm truly a groupie, if she's on a podcast or she's somewhere, I'm listening. She gets me through more workouts than she probably even wants to know. But
I love it. Does it count if you work out and I'm there? Like it counts.
You
for
get
me,
full
right?
credit for it. Absolutely, we're working out together. The Hughart is because she's always smiling. She's always bubbly. She's always optimistic, which is crazy when you think about how busy she is. She just basically painted the picture of what she's done the last 10, 11 weeks or so, and that is more than a lot of people do in an entire career. So if you're just listening to this, you might be thinking, okay, she's probably in her 30th year of education. If you're watching this, you can tell she's not. If you're listening to this, you're probably thinking, man, she's been around for a long time. She's built up a lot of connections and networks, and that's why she's blowing it up. But you're what, your 9th year teaching? Is that right?
Actually in my 7th.
Seventh.
Yes, my
Seventh. I overplayed that.
You did. I'm sorry.
How?
I don't share that with many people. Sometimes that's a turnoff for teachers.
Well, so let's talk about that then.
Okay.
7th year. Why would somebody in their 7th year take this leap? Because I hear all these statistics all the time that we have 20% of our teachers leaving the profession after year 5. By year 7, it's 33% of teachers have left because they're just burnt out and exhausted and they don't feel supported. And yet you're out there lighting the world on fire in your 7th year. How in the world did that happen?
Gosh, that is a weighted question, but I told you I'd be honest with you. So I'm going to tell you all the things, but in terms of why I don't tell people how long I've been in the classroom or my age, it's not that I don't tell people, right? Okay, so I'm 28 years old, been in the classroom for 7 years. And I think that that's a turnoff because some teachers are like, oh, she's early in her career, she doesn't know anything. And I got that for a long time. I mean, a long time as in since I started education. And I don't want that to be the reason that I can't connect with the teacher. because I would never want to put myself in a situation where I, distance myself in building a relationship with the student. And I think that teachers and collaborators, they're partners with me. So for a lot of people, I'm like, oh, just don't ask my age. That's all I care about.
Well,
Maybe it's getting better now. I've told people I was 35 for about 10 years, and I think they're catching on. So I started being honest.
that's awesome.
Yeah, but hey, I think that every teacher, whether it's their first week in the classroom or they've been 30 years in the classroom, they have such expertise to share. A lot of your podcast highlights, they all have stories. And if we could put those stories together without judgment and actually just focus on the fact that all these expertises can help us reach our students better, then I think that's kind of the mission, right? I mean, come on.
That's so good. Let's just talk about the age factor just a second. Because you kind of threw it out there. Maybe I set you up for it. I don't know. One of us brought it out, so we're just going to keep going. So I can relate. I started teaching when I was 22 years old and was an administrator by the time I was 30. I'm 42 right now. I'll throw my age out there right now. At 42, I still hear that from some people that are in their 35th year of teaching who say, I don't know anything because I'm only in my 20th year of education. Or you'll hear the exact opposite. You'll hear some people that complain about the veterans who say they're out of touch because they don't know what it's like to be young. So we're always going to have the doubters, no matter what the excuse is. So just go out there and keep killing it and just be real and be true. You're tapping into those people right now who need to hear from somebody in their 7th, 8th, 9th year of teaching that says, I still have that passion and I haven't abandoned ship yet. So focus in on who you are and tap into that audience.
Oh yeah, there's incredible things to learn from everybody. It's so funny that was the first thing we started to talk about.
That's awesome. So let's go back even before this semester. So going back even younger. So one of the things I like to ask educators is why they became a teacher to begin with. And there's always a cool story in that. For some people, it's because school was just this amazing, safe place for them and they excelled and they want to pay it forward. For some, it's because I struggled and I wanted to turn it around. And there are others that are somewhere in the middle. So what is your story?
All right. So my story starts all the way back to first, second grade. I hated school. Like I actually hated school all through high school. I would say like halfway through college. Like I hate school. I was the kid that I'm sure the teachers talked about, where my mother would like pull me by my ear into the building or I'd be sobbing. I have incredible parents and I fought them tooth and nail my entire upbringing. Yeah. School was the worst place in the world. And it had nothing to do with my teachers. Like Miss Churn was my first grade teacher. And I still remember her. She was like the smiley, wonderful teacher. I loved her. Like I loved the people. But learning sucked. Like I hated like learning anything because I was constantly behind. And in second grade, I was diagnosed SLD. And so now I had this IEP, which I know was created to support me. But as a child, especially elementary school, middle school, high school, it was like having a bright neon sign over your head. Like, yeah, you struggle with school. So now we're going to put like all these other embarrassing things on you. Like we're going to pull you out of class and we're going to like put you in groups and you're going to have a teacher that checks in on you. And like, I just found all that so annoying and embarrassing. And again, I don't think it was the teachers. I grew up on the north suburbs of Chicago in a very, very affluent area with two incredibly supportive parents. I had everything we want our students to have. I had support at home. I had academic driven parents. I had amazing teachers. My schools had enough money that they could provide any support they could. It had nothing to do with them. I hated learning and I had this horrible block up. But my favorite place in the entire world that still, when I go back to my hometown, I visit is I was a part of a dance studio. I took ballet when I was young. I ended up, that was my home base. Like I was there probably 5 days a week in elementary school, much less when I got to high school. I was offered an opportunity to teach there, and I was probably there 6 days a week, every night, all day, if possible. I mean, it was the best place in the world because there, although you were learning and you were teaching, it was fun, and there was this family atmosphere. And my dance instructor just believed in me, right? Like I wasn't the best dancer in the world. I learned very quickly that I was never going to be a professional dancer. But talk about a teacher that had an impact. Like Laverne Lehman, holy cow, she shaped everything for me. My college paper was on Laverne Lehman and her impact being my dance instructor. And so when I got to high school and I started taking on these opportunities, I started seeing this disconnect between going to a high school, learning, struggling, being in special ed classes and still feeling unsuccessful, but then looking at the outside world outside of school, a family atmosphere at a dance studio, this focus on growing as a dancer rather than being perfect as a ballerina. And not to talk too long about this, but my parents are extremely successful business people. They both run multi-million-dollar companies, and they are professionals at connecting with people. So my whole time growing up, my life was filled with business dinners and like beautiful tablescapes, and they really emphasized the need that every moment is an opportunity for a connection. And I loved like cocktails, not that I was drinking or drinking water, but as a child, it was my responsibility to be able to hold a conversation at dinner and be at social gatherings. And I loved that stuff. So I'm like, how can I take what I loved about dance, what I loved about talking to people when my parents would have business dinners or business meetings, and why doesn't that exist in a school system? Like, why aren't connections and growth the focus? So I decided, like, any normal high schooler does, is like, I'm going to go to school and I'm going to pick the worst job ever and I'm going to make it a little bit better. So my sophomore year, I dropped services for special ed. I applied to my REACH school. At the time was Illinois State University. And I wanted to be a middle level math teacher because math was the worst subject ever. So if I could teach math and if I could make math fun, then I could do almost anything. At least in my mind, that's what I was thinking. So when I was accepted to Illinois State University in my undergrad, that was a moment for me. Big deal.
So many things I want to kind of circle back to with that story, because I think it's a powerful, powerful story. The idea of labels and how you had this label thrown upon you, and you didn't walk up and down the halls truly with a neon sign, but you felt it. And
I felt it.
Your name, I guarantee, in your grade book, your teacher's grade books, you had that little asterisk next to your name, and the initials next to your name to identify your label. And I'm a firm believer that kids will always live up to whatever label we give them. And I was on the opposite end of the spectrum. I was labeled gifted early on. And as a result, as an adult, I thought I was never supposed to mess up. And the first time I hit failure, I hit rock bottom because I thought I was supposed to be my label. And I think you said something that resonated with me. You said you hated learning. And I'm going to push back on that a little bit. I want you to take this pushback and respond to it. I don't know that you hated learning. I think you hated jumping through hoops and playing school, because you talk about dance and how you loved dance and you loved growing through dance. So you were learning dance. Mm-hmm. So I don't know that you hated learning, but maybe you hated the game of school. Is that accurate or no?
I think that's completely accurate to a T, because to be honest, I don't think I ever figured out how to play school. In the traditional model of what a school looks like, you have those group of students that play the game real well. Right. And I have yet to figure it out, because I don't think I was, I couldn't figure out how to play the game like everybody else was. Versus my husband's kind of like you. He's gifted. He played school really well. And so when he struggled, he was like, I don't even know how to, what do you do when you hit failure, and but it's fascinating as an adult watching those two dynamics between a student that doesn't know how to play school and a student who does, because their struggles and their areas of success are opposite.
Right.
Know?
And I think oftentimes one of the things we do in schools is we slap these labels on kids. And there are sometimes the labels have tremendous value. So I don't want people to take what I'm saying and generalize it, but I'll talk about my own experience. Sometimes we throw these labels on kids based off of a kid's ability to play school, because oftentimes in schools, we think it's our job to create the next generation of teachers that can go play school for others, as opposed to creating successful adults. Because, I think about your label of SLD, I guarantee back in first grade, second grade, nobody looked at you and said, Ray's going to grow up and be a teacher and do what we do. They thought there's no way you'll be able to be capable of that. But you took your love of learning and relevant learning, which I know is something you focus on a lot in your class, and growth, and said, I'm going to make it better for kids. One of my very first guests I ever had on the show was a guy by the name of Mike Lippa. And Mike Lippa works at Snapchat. And he's a big wig up at Snapchat. And he told this story about how when he was in school, he struggled mightily. And he was always that kid that was always in trouble and had all the labels thrown upon him. Now he's out there truly wearing the suit at Snapchat, running this huge corporation. And he said the best experience he ever had in terms of learning, the best education he ever got was just making connections, learning from other people as an adult, reaching out across the aisle, shaking hands, rubbing shoulders with people. And that's how he grows and learns. He said, if we spent more time in school focusing on that, as opposed to content regurgitation, we would have more successful adults.
Well, every moment is an opportunity for a connection. If you can make that your focus, you don't need to be an expert in everything. You just need to know who to contact when you need something.
That's it. That's it. Even if that person is Alexa or Siri or whatever, or Ray, you just have to know the right name to call out.
Yeah, you know, my grandmother tutored me about 3 times a week from kindergarten till about, I would say, until I left for college. Maybe only twice a week my senior year, because I had like gotten into college and I knew I was going. But she's been somebody who I've loved reflecting with. She's a teacher. So not only having her tutor me, which I hated completely, but also having her kind of see my entire lifespan from that educational view has been fascinating for me, because I think, and I tell her this, I think I got my master's out of spite just to show her I could, because I remember the conversation, and no fault to her, but I remember the conversation that she had with my mother being like, I don't think that Ray's ever going to be college bound. You know, it's like, there's too many hurdles in her way, but she'll find something she loves. They always knew I was a very kind person, whatever. But a lot of that, and I'm actually writing a piece for Idea Illinois right now on that. A lot of it is sometimes you do things just to prove that you can. And I want to not only be able to do that in my life, but I want to create those opportunities for my students that they can see the relevancy and they can see the purpose, and they should be able to have time to do that and then be able to feel the success afterwards. I know we could talk about my classroom, but one of my favorite parts of my classroom is that I get to facilitate all of those experiences, and then I get to be like the celebratory cheerleader when we get there. And we always get there. We always get to that moment of success. And I love being able to kind of be a part of those memories for students, because those memories are what drives us forward when failure or areas of growth happen, because they know that those opportunities for success are achievable. Yeah. And I love that stuff. I love it.
So let's talk about your classroom a little bit. Sure. What I love about your classroom is I think it is a great reflection of who you are as an individual. It's not like this silo. It's not I teach and I do all this other stuff. Your gifting in life right now seems to be making connections and bringing people together, bringing the world together. And I think that's what you do in your classroom too. So you teach middle school math, and God bless you. Number one, I'm a middle school guy through and through. And if you don't love it, they will eat you up and spit you out. And you absolutely love it. You radiate middle school. But middle school math can be a place where kids are just learning a bunch of algorithms and formulas. It could just be memorize this, don't ask why. This is just what you have to do. But you bring relevance to the classroom by making these connections outside of the classroom. Can you talk to us a little bit about what it is that you do in your classroom?
Absolutely. So in one school year, my students take on 25 different themed internships that are all sponsored by local businesses. So throughout one school year, they've created a full resume of 25 different jobs or careers that they've taken on. And they collect 25 different business cards from 25 different community leaders or more in the community. And they facilitate those internships through a self-paced mastery framework. So if you take all those like academic words out, here's the gist. My students get to walk in and they immediately know the relevancy of their content because it's plastered all over the room. So legitimately Friday, so we're recording this on a Saturday morning, right? So Friday, my students hosted a pop-up restaurant where they managed, cleaned, and facilitated an entire restaurant for over 200 community members. And they did that to learn decimals and surface area. obviously, because those are elements that are very naturally embedded in running a restaurant, taking orders, calculating a bill, and cleaning up a restaurant. So it's really an enjoyable experience, but the main focus is, how do I make the why or the relevancy of their content the forefront before they even learn anything? And how do I allow them to do that at their own pace? Because, mastery learning, personalized learning, competency-based learning, these are all like buzzwords depending on what state you live in. It's kind of depending on which word is most prevalent. But it's just giving students permission to learn. It's giving students permission to not play school and to focus on growth. And the problem with that is that some teachers find that really challenging to manage. And just like anybody, classroom management is a huge element of a successful classroom.
Mhm.
And so teachers, I'm finding, are trying to build mastery learning or personalized learning into their classroom, but then they fall into pitfalls, and students begin to fall through the cracks, so they don't feel like they're reaching their learners. So what do? They go back to the traditional model. And I really believe that if we can give teachers the tool of facilitating a mastery-focused, personalized learning classroom where students have the permission to get what they need whenever they need it, and then you challenge them to work through that rigor, that grit, by showing them the why. In my mind, that's like, it's a perfect educational sandwich, right? You're giving them engagement and giving them grit, and they're doing it all within a 46-minute math class every single day.
So there might be some teachers listening that say, that sounds amazing, but I have to follow a pacing guide. My district already told me I have to open the textbook and start on page 1 and end on page 100. So how do we talk about giving students this freedom to engage in innovative learning. How did you as a teacher get that freedom to do this? Because it's big.
Yeah. So there's two parts to that conversation. Maybe we'll start with the easier one first. First of all, I work in an amazing building. When I got the job at Evans Junior High, that was the dream job. They offered me a 6th grade math, and at the time it was also an ELA job. And that to me was like, it was the dream job that you knew that you wanted. But when I had the opportunity, I was like, done, I'll never leave. I'll do that forever. And I do a pacing guide. I have assessments that I have to give that I can't adapt, and common assessments throughout the entire district. And yes, like we have all those hurdles, but so what? You still need to do what's right for your students. And so I do follow the pacing guide. I do give the assessments I'm required. That's my job. Just like those teachers that are like, oh, I have so many standards. Like, well, yeah, like your job, like as a teacher, is to teach those standards. That's kind of what we are here for.
Right.
So I do use all those things and I make it work. But in my mind, I can either see those as hurdles that stop me from taking the path and making my content relevant for students, or I can just, accept them as things I need to work with and brainstorm how to utilize them while still getting my students the support they need. So I totally get it. As for the teachers that I hear about all the time that tell me like, well, their admin really wants me to go page by page in the textbook, or my admin really wants me to teach the same lesson as my colleague who, also teaches the same thing down the hall. And first off, I want to preface, I also have a colleague that teaches 6th grade math in the same building. And we collaborate like crazy. So she doesn't teach like me at all. We're actually completely different types of teachers. However, when we meet for our PLC or planning time, we plan the next unit. We're not talking about day by day. We're talking about our content as a unit, as a whole. So how are we supporting our students to master the content standard? But if you have an admin that requires, a certain, process, it's usually out of fear. And I don't mean that in a mean way. Our administrators are our instructional leaders in many cases. And, but those supports are in place so that our students can get the support they need. So for a lot of the administrators that are saying, oh, you need to go chapter by chapter in the textbook, or, oh, you need to be on this day at this point in time in our pacing guide, in my mind, you got to talk about the elephant in the room. And actually I facilitate a lot of those conversations with teachers that, that existed at a time when your administrative leader really wants to ensure that your students were supported. So if you can give them a different solution to ensuring that happens, that's a really important conversation to have. So I kind of dived into two separate things there,
Oh,
but
that was good. So
it has to do with conversation.
You talked about the elephant in the room, and I'm going to bring out an elephant real quick, if that's okay. So my day job is I am one of those people. So I was a building principal. Now I work in central office, and I'm the curriculum guy.
Man,
and it's my
you're hated.
Yeah, I am, right? No, it's a very difficult world to be in. And the way that I approach my job is very different than a lot of other curriculum directors. And I understand that there might be some people out there listening right now that are curriculum directors saying, no, your job is to focus on fidelity. Oh God, I hate that word. And making sure that everybody is doing things the same way and everybody gets the same experience, whatever. It's a whole nother conversation. But one of the things that I have learned is when I was a building principal, I sucked. I sucked because I thought that I was elevated to the position of principal because I was a great teacher. So everybody simply needed to do things the way that I did them in my classroom. And I think that is a belief that a lot of administrators have, is that they were promoted or they were given this advancement so that they could then pass down all their knowledge to everybody else below them. And they looked at it as below them. And I don't know if it's necessarily a fear thing or an arrogance thing or a confidence thing or whatever the case may be, but I know that was a me thing. And I struggled with that for a long time in my administrative life. But I've had some of those proverbial and literal slaps across the face where I've realized my errors. And talk about the elephant in the room. One of the things that I've recognized, and I actually picked this up sitting in church about 4 years ago. I had a pastor who was talking one time about something completely different, but he had a picture of an elephant on the screen. And attached to the elephant's leg was a rope, and the rope was tied to a stake. And he told this story about how elephants are trained early on when they're bred into captivity, that their world is just a 6-foot radius around the stake. And as they grow up and they get stronger and bigger, they still continue to believe that is their world. I saw that image and I heard that and I thought, holy crap, that's what I'm doing to teachers. I get these teachers that are so big and strong and powerful, and they come into their career and I say, nope, this is your world. Follow the script, follow the pacing guide, follow the book. And even though you're getting bigger and stronger, you're learning more, you start to believe this is your entire world. So now my goal is to walk up to teachers and literally cut the rope and say, you're a beast. Go out there and do your thing and realize your strength and your power. And I think that's kind of what you have done. So kudos to your administrator for cutting your rope as much as they could and letting you go out there and, sorry, Ray, but you are a huge elephant. Embrace that because you're killing it.
Well, I appreciate that. I work with an incredible admin team. I'm thrilled that they are supportive and let me turn my classroom into 1,000 different experiences for students. I think that's important. And I keep my pacing as well as I can to the district standard. And, you know, it's honestly, we can see those things as negatives, but for instance, the common assessments that I have, like we can see that as being, you know, tied to a stake, right? Feeling like I'm stuck in something. But to be honest, it's great data. Like there are always benefits to things. It's identifying the positives, identifying the negatives, and figure out how you can work between them, right? It's important.
Yeah, there's no point in having a common assessment if we're all doing things in a common way. Otherwise, we have nothing to compare. So you have to have people willing to do something different. Otherwise, there's no point in assessing all the same way. But that's a conversation for another day.
Yes.
So again, you're doing a lot out there. Inside your classroom, outside your classroom, you've got these huge mega units that some people are looking at saying, wow, that's a huge leap. I'm going to start with one. I want to go out and do something similar and try to bring the real world into my classroom. Great starting point.
Do it.
But again, 7th year of teaching. You are teaching classes at the college level. You host a podcast, and every Monday night you are just talking to some amazing people and throwing content out there constantly. You just organized a huge conference in the Midwest, not in your hometown. I mean, this was in a state, 2 states away from you that you had to help organize. You wrote a book. You are everywhere right now, and yet you still smile. How in the world do you do this?
Oh gosh, this stems, you remember we were on our Facebook Live and I was talking about this. You asked me a really hard question related to this and you put me on the spot. I was a little ready for it today, but I don't know. My answer I gave on the Facebook Live when we connected was the God honest truth. So I'm kind of going to go off of that. Yeah. But my calendar from 6 a.m. to about 10 p.m. is full. To the point that before the conference, which was just last weekend, people would say, oh, hey, Ray, can I hop on a phone call? And I'd be like, absolutely. I'm so excited to talk to you as a teacher. We can problem solve through your lesson plans. How's 15 days from now? Because I honestly, I didn't have an hour to give. And if I had an hour, I would give it.
Yeah.
So I'm busy. I really am, probably more so than I'd like to be. I'd like to find that little bit of a balance again. But like I said before, if you look at every single small piece of my calendar, what am I doing every single hour? I love them all. And I know that sounds cheesy, and there's some people that will be listening, they'll be like, yeah, whatever. But honestly, I really do. I wake up at 6 a.m. because I have teachers that want to chat on the phone, and that's the time that I can connect with them. That's the time that I'm able to, get ready for my day mentally, take a little bit of me time. And then I get to school and I get to work with 156 graders, and we laugh and joke, whether it be a great day or a horrible day. Like, they're the people that fuel me. And then my class day ends at 3:45, and from 4 o'clock to 10, you're right, I'm in the midst of doing podcasts, doing a Facebook Live to do a Q&A with teachers. We're working on our book. We're planning the next Teach Better Conference 2020, right? I mean, it is full, but I love it. And it's busy, but
Yeah.
I love it.
It's not how much you do, it's whether or not what you're doing is filling your passion.
Yes.
And again, I feel from you, your passion is truly connections. So if you could, I feel like you would try to connect one-on-one with every single educator in America.
Without a doubt. Absolutely, I would.
Right. But I think you would also miss connecting with your kids on a day-to-day basis.
Yes.
What brings, and maybe it's not a fair question to ask, what brings you more joy, connecting with adults or working with kids? Do you feel like those are in tandem, that you are always going to have those two working symbiotically?
Yeah, so that's a really hard question. And it's actually one I've been struggling with for the past year plus, because I understand the idea of, you work with teachers, you impact more students, right? Like, I get that.
Yeah.
But that never hit home for me. I've had people say that to me for years when I'm working with the Teach Better team. They're like, oh, Rae, you'll eventually not be in the classroom, and you'll work with teachers, and think about how amazing it is. You can work with teachers and impact even more students. And I know that's great, but that's not what fuels me. Mm-hmm. And so it wasn't enough for that to be okay, sure, that will be my future. What I do love, to be completely honest, is that the way that we work with teachers is not sitting in a boardroom style thing, hosting a workshop for 40 teachers. Like, mm-hmm. That's not, I'll do it and I love it, but that's not what fuels my drive. What I love is sitting in a 2-day workshop with a teacher, building something with them focused on content, and then the follow-up. Because the follow-up allows me to be in that specific teacher's classroom 10 times throughout the school year, which means I'm not just working with that teacher, but I get to know their students. I get to come into the room and meet their students multiple times throughout the course of the year. I get to have that interaction in a school building. Yes, I love my students. I don't know what I'd do without them. I had a hard day this week. I came off a high of the Teach Better conference, and then my dog was very ill. And for those of you that know me, my dogs are my life. And so it's been a battle this week. And then ending it with Tobin's Pizza, where my classroom was transformed to a restaurant, literally was a highlight and a really hard part of my week. But the goofing around with students, like, I don't know how you get past that. Like, you can't be in education and not find time to goof off with students every so often, because they're the reason we do this, right? I mean, I love adults, but I love kids more.
No, that's an excellent answer. And I can relate. So I've been in administration now for 13 years. Yeah. And I still get to teach a lot. I get to teach adults. I get to travel and speak and present, all that stuff. So the teaching isn't something I miss. I miss those connections with kids, not just saying hi to kids up and down the hall. I can do that all the time I want. It's knowing their names, knowing their stories. And again, I think that's your gift, both with kids and adults, because I think you do connect with adults on a very real level as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I was going to say, though, I think within the past year, I've made a shift, and I'm sure you made the shift years ago, but for some reason, nobody told me. So I'm like new to the game. But I did not see working with teachers like working with students until like this year, because like we should be using the same strategies that we use with our students for our teachers in professional development. And for some reason, like no matter where I am speaking, there's this very strong divide that when you work with teachers, you're working with teachers and you can't see it as working with students. Versus now, I talk to the team all the time. I'm like, the wacky stuff I do with my 11-year-olds works way better with my teachers. They need the excitement. They need the hook. They need the engagement. They need the relevancy. They need the personalized learning. And so I think once I found the shift between goofing around with 11-year-olds actually being the same as goofing around with 40-year-olds, I'm like, well, now I love it. Right now, I'm like, why does PD model poor practice? Like PD should model best practice. And it's actually harder for me to do the traditional model because I was never good at it as a student and I don't know how to design content that way. And I thought that I had to, like as a professional development, consultant, like I will lecture and wear a suit. And I'm like, no way. I'm going to wear the clothes I wear with my 11-year-olds. I'm going to make the same jokes that we do. And we're going to immerse ourselves in learning because that makes it more relevant for our teachers who are the students in professional development.
It's so cool that you say that and so cool that you embrace that. And I love the fact that you guys just hosted your own conference and that you're planning a second one where you can demonstrate that and model it. And you saw the success of it. Now, how many people traveled from all around the country to go to Akron, Ohio? There was no other reason to go to Akron, Ohio than for the Teach Better conference. Just saying. Sorry, Ohio. I'm a Michigan guy again. But I think, so I'll take you back 6 years ago now. I went to present at my first national conference and I was on top of the world thinking, oh my gosh, I get to speak to educators from everywhere. And I was in Las Vegas. Mm-hmm. And I went wearing what I always wear. I always wear a baseball hat. I was wearing a t-shirt and jeans, wearing my shtick, if you will. And after I presented, the big wigs from the conference came up and said, sorry, your lesson was too engaging and you weren't dressed professionally enough. We are not having you back. Too engaging. What? Right.
I'm sorry.
Right. So I looked at, okay, so that is not for me. But that was one of these big mega conferences that host themselves in Las Vegas every single year, mm-hmm. portraying themselves as the place to go and learn how to teach and how to lead. And I thank God that other people are coming up like you guys. I say you guys collectively.
It's the whole team.
Who are showing us that it doesn't have to be that way. That if we truly want to teach better, we need to teach everybody better, adults included. Whether you're in your 7th year of teaching, whether you've never been a teacher, or whether or not you were burnt out from teaching and thought, I'm losing my mind, you guys come together and say, no, let's just make it better. That's awesome.
Well, and I know we haven't really talked about the Teach Better team, but that idea of growth is essential. It's why I was drawn to them when I originally met Jeff and Chad, because it wasn't about putting on the right outfit and saying the right things. It was about showing up as a human being, talking shop about what we already know we all love, acknowledging where we are coming from, and just talking about being a little better. I mean, all 300 people that were at the Teach Better conference came from different spots. And we actually started, our opening keynote was, let's talk about how we've all come from different backgrounds. Right. Because what you can't grow from where, let me rephrase, you can't grow if you don't know where you're coming from. So to be able to identify that we're all in different spaces and the focus is how can you grow, be a little bit better today than you were yesterday and a little bit better tomorrow than you were today, then you're in a really good spot. And, when you talk about engaging, that kills me. That comment kills me because I am a huge proponent of like fluff, right? So with education and classrooms, I know we could talk about this forever, but like fluff exists. And you go on Instagram, I love Instagram, and you see these fluffy lessons with neon paper and in beautiful font. And if that's all you see it as, like, then that can't be good teaching because we cannot engage our learners with fluff. Like I always pray, I'm sure you say it, like fluff ain't enough. But when you add relevancy, when you add grit, when you add purpose on top of the fluff, then I'm all about it, right? Like engaging, show up as you are, like be your own person, but then make sure that all like the value still exists. Like I love that stuff. So I'm so glad that you wore your baseball cap and your t-shirt because that's you. You show up as you. Yeah. And if they can't accept that, then it's like, nah, you're with the wrong crowd. Never mind.
And that's exactly it. And that was exactly it. I realized I was with the wrong crowd because fast forward 6 months later, I'm in Nashville at my first AMLE middle school conference, and
Oh,
I walk in and I watch Dave Burgess. I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me?
dude,
The
he's in
pirate
a
man
pirate
burning
outfit.
bras, and you're telling me that? So that's when I found that there is a niche for me. And the more that I explore, the more I learn, the more I grow, the more I connect, I realize that there truly is a niche for everybody out there. And one of the reasons so many teachers, I believe, get burned out and leave the profession is because they feel like they're on this island all alone, and they don't find their niche. They don't find those people that empower them and say, you can be you. You can. It doesn't matter what your past was like. It doesn't matter your experience. Where you are now determines where you're going to go. So keep bringing it. Keep bringing it.
I think that network is essential. I actually met Jeff and Chad on Twitter when I was hosting a Teach Like a Pirate Twitter chat. And
so let's tell that story a little bit, because I've heard this story. I think it's so cool. You're leading TLAP on a Monday night. This huge, for those of you that are just that aren't on Twitter, TLAP Monday nights 9 Eastern. It's the Teach Like a Pirate chat, and there are literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people on this chat. And when you're hosting it, you can't keep up. I mean, you are just lost in the fog. So here's Rae, not part of the Teach Better team yet, hosting TLAP, completely overwhelmed, lost in the mix, and what happens?
Okay, wait, can I preface? I was like a week or two on Twitter, and I only did it because I was a credit short in my master's degree, and I told you I'm getting my master's degree despite my grandmother.
Right.
And I was like, man, so I signed up for this tech course, and the first assignment was you have to have a social media account. I was like, done. I'm going to create a fake Twitter account, never use it again. Check that box, done. And when Dave reached out to ask me to host TLAP, I had to Google what TLAP stood for because I didn't understand what TLAP. Well, then I found out it was like my favorite book ever, Teach Like a Pirate. And I'm like, golden.
You thought it was some disease or something, right?
Well, yeah, I was like, what is this? And so I'm Googling like hashtag TLAP. What does that mean? You know?
Yeah.
Come on, you couldn't make it more obvious than that? Anyway, so I'm hosting, and I get this message on in direct messages, which at the time I wasn't even sure I knew how to click on. And it was from a company called The Grid Method. And it was just saying, hey, Rae, we love everything you're doing. And I was trying to be polite. You know, you get these messages. I just hosted like this whirlwind of a chat. I cannot believe he even asked me to host. Can I just tell you, I like literally had a heart attack when Dave Burgess messaged me on Twitter, because I couldn't believe that one of my favorite educational authors, I hadn't heard him speak yet at this point, but I was such a fan, messaged me. I was like, he knows my name. This is like my 15 minutes of fame, right?
Total fangirling, yeah.
Oh my God, I'm the worst fangirl. I even met him this past weekend, and it was the first time I met him in person, and I've actually proud to have been connected with him ever since. But I was like, hey, Dave, can I give you a hug? And he's like, Rae! I'm like, oh my God, he knows my name. Like, whatever. All right, I'm done embarrassing myself. So I get this message from The Grid Method, and I thought this was massive company. I responded, thank you. I appreciate you participating in the chat. And they said we should hop on a call sometime. What I didn't know is that when I responded, hey, thanks for participating in the chat, Jeff Gargis gets a message on his phone that his social media director had thanked me for hosting. And he was like, Rae Hughart, at the time, my Twitter handle was Teach Further. And they're like, that's interesting. So he messaged me saying like, hey, we should connect sometime. And I'm like, great. This big company is going to like try and sell me something. I'm like, I don't have any money. I'm like in my first or second year teaching. I don't know anything. Like, don't get me involved. But I was nice. I was like, yeah, sounds good. Let's set up that time. And he like held me accountable. You're like, okay, let's set up a time. Does this time work? I'm like, oh my God, I actually have to talk to this guy. So I'm on the phone with him.
Talk out of your like sense.
Oh my God. He had Jeff Gargis has no idea the impact he's made on my life. And he's a professional at this. He does this for people all the time. I had no idea that the Google Hangout on a phone call with Jeff Gargis, where he wasn't selling me anything, even though I thought he was going to completely change my career. Because long story short, he introduced me to mastery learning, thanks to Chad Erskowski, created the Grid Method. I joined the Teach Better team. He helped me amplify the vision of Teach Further, which is a lesson design model that allows teachers to design their own internships for their students and partner with local businesses. I haven't paid a dime out of my pocket for my classroom. in 6 years because my sponsors take care of everything. But I had no way to like share that message, and they shared so much insight with me. They changed my entire philosophy on education. And now I get to work with teachers and show them how to do this. I mean, he legitimately changed my life. I don't know what I'd be doing without them.
But don't worry, I will edit this out of the podcast because he doesn't.
Oh yeah,
that.
yeah. You can't let Jeff know any of this. He's the co-host on Teach Better Talk with Me, and when I say he's the co-host, I mean he is my co-host because I do all the work. Jeff doesn't do anything.
We know, absolutely. He does all the grunt work behind the scenes. He just pushes the buttons. You lead the show. We got it, absolutely.
Yeah.
But that is a powerful story, and for those people that don't know, Jeff Gargas was never a classroom teacher.
No.
But you say that changed the course of your teaching, which I think is super cool. When your voice was amplified, it's almost like you got empowered to go out there and start doing things a little bit differently yourself. Because I doubt he sat you down and gave you lessons on lesson plan design and classroom management, but yet that connection empowered you in your own classroom.
Every moment's an opportunity for a connection, right? I mean, honestly, he did. He was partnered with Chad. They had started the grid method at the time. That was just the mastery framework they were doing professional development on. And over the course of, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, now the Teach Better team is so much more than just one mastery framework that a teacher could use in their classroom to facilitate a mastery classroom. We now do live PD. We do online courses at Teach Better Academy, blogs, podcasts, free downloads. And all because an educator and a business guy who were simply wanting to do good came together and decided to change the world. And I don't know how I tricked them to be a part of it, but I mean, they're my best friends. I talk to them every single day.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
that's very cool. So what's next for you?
Oh God.
Let's just talk short term. So right now we're filming this and it's fall, but it feels like winter where we are. It's cold. Yeah. You just came off the Teach Better conference. Yeah. So I think you're coming back to reality now and you're starting to be excited about it again.
Give me till Sunday.
Okay. I think it's a bad analogy, especially being a dude here, but I think it's probably like childbirth. You went 9 months of planning this thing and all of a sudden it was just this painful experience, but now you forgot about all the pain and you're ready to try it again, right?
Totally true.
Okay. So, in the short term, second semester of this school year, what's happening for you in 2020? How you kicking
up? I'm alluding to things that I don't think I'm allowed to talk about.
I won't air this until it's all said and done. So no worries.
Oh yeah, I don't believe you. So, all right. First of all, there will be a Teach Better 2020. I'm not really allowed to tell you any more than that. Besides that, it will probably be next fall sometime. Awesome. Probably in Ohio, maybe in a different area of Ohio. And the part that made Teach Better 19 a huge success was the fact that we brought together an incredible group of educators from all over the country, and we created an intimate setting for all of them to network and really build unique relationships. Right. Whether you're an attendee or a presenter, you became family. And so we are really holding true to that, and we are making our lineup even better, if you can believe it. So that's all I can tell you about that. I'm telling you that I've seen the lineup for 2020, and holy shnikes, is it good.
Jesus is coming to Ohio. That's the only way it can be better.
You need to come and present. You're on my list.
All right. We'll see what we can do.
All right. So in addition to that, I'm excited to tell you, or at least allude to, we're having a new group of amazing educators join the Teach Better team. So that will be releasing soon. We always love to keep our family close, and so we're bringing even more family members into our amazing network. And I will have another book coming out with one of my really great friends, Adam Welcome. So I don't know that I'm allowed to tell you about any of that, but that will be
awesome.
Coming.
That is awesome. Yay. So those of you listening, I hope you put on your earmuffs when she said you weren't supposed to know any of this.
Yeah, those are 3 things I don't think I'm not allowed to talk about.
Okay, so you didn't hear a thing, earmuffs, and then I'll send out another tweet or something on Facebook to tell you when you can go back and replay this episode and hear all that news. So just forget you heard anything. Yes. That's awesome. So you are constantly out there amplifying your message, which is so cool. And I love the fact that you've got this confidence now about you that is, it's first of all, it comes across as complete humility, which is powerful. Nothing about you is arrogant or nothing about you comes across as conceited or like you have all the answers, but you have so much wisdom. And I love the fact that you feel confident enough to share that with so many people.
I am surrounded by really good people. I just repeat what they say and give them credit for it.
Good for you. I'm a firm believer that when you amplify the voices of others, people start listening to you more. So keep doing that. It's awesome. So with all that you're doing, with all that you've done, I'm going to give you that opportunity now. I warned you that this opportunity was coming. Okay. It's the mic drop moment. It's your opportunity now that you are on the second biggest podcast in the world. Teach Better Talk is number one. Don't look at the charts. We're just saying it. Teach Better Talk is number one. Lasting Learning is number two, but I'm creeping up on you, Rae. I'm getting you.
I hope that you actually come on our podcast so then we can blow both of them up.
Let's do it. All right.
Yeah.
So we've got 7 billion people that are listening right now. Ooh. And they want to hear your wisdom. They've heard your story. They've heard your empowerment message, but they want to hear now that nugget that's going to revolutionize and change their lives. And it's going to change the world. No pressure here.
Yeah, it didn't sound pressureful at all.
So bring it. What is that thing that you want people to hold on to and say, this is what's going to make the difference?
Okay, no pressure. I'm sure there are a million things I should be saying right now. Instead, I'm going to take us a little bit away from education. I had shoulder surgery in July. And I'm very nervous about doctors. I'm a complete wimp, like completely. And I'm sitting right before surgery. My mom came down to, support me, whatever. And the doctor comes in with this like enormous shot. Like I want you to envision the largest shot you've ever seen and then like multiply it by 15, right? It was so big it didn't even fit in the room, right? And he's like, all right, you need this. We're going to, whatever, we're going to give you this shot and then you're going to go into surgery. And I was terrified. And I'm trying to be smiley because that's kind of a defense mechanism sometimes. And I'm trying to make a joke to calm myself down, even though I'm really crying and trying to smile. And he looks at me, gets very serious. He looks at me dead in the eye and says, I've had people that were more nervous than you, who had a worse injury than you, and I'll take care of you. You'll be fine. And for some reason, that really stuck with me. And I really want to share that same message with educators. I've talked to educators in a worse spot than you. And I've worked with students in a worse position than yours. And I promise you, we can figure it out together because it's really all about the network that you build to support finding the solutions that you need. Chad Erskowski says that all the time, that, the answers to the problems in our classrooms exist in another classroom. You just have to go find it. And so I really, truly believe that if you're a teacher who has taken the time out of your school day to listen to a podcast and grow your network, like there is nothing that we can't do because we've all seen everything. And so when we put our minds together, it's amazing the impact that we can make. So my challenge to your listeners would be to simply connect, reach out, ask the hard questions, and be a part of the movement that's going to change education. Because really, if you're not on the train, then we're going to leave you behind, and I don't want you to be left behind. And I think there's really important things we're doing. And the more we can come together, kind of hold hands and walk through the hard times together, the bigger impact will make even faster.
So good. So good.
Good.
And I'm gonna deviate from the norm here, right? Because I want to tell you one story real quick, because what you just said was powerful for me. Okay, so I'm going to tell you something that I'm sure you had no idea about, but I'll go there. One of the things I really appreciate about you is your willingness to just be vulnerable, real, authentic, and true. So 2019 was probably the hardest year of my life personally. I mean, I hit rock bottom. I talked about that whole idea of never experiencing failure, and when it hits you hard. Mm-hmm. Early of 2019, I was in a dark, dark, dark place. In a place where I felt like I was completely alone and isolated. I tell people all the time, there's a difference between being alone and feeling lonely. Yeah. And sometimes I choose to be alone, but nobody ever chooses to feel lonely. Yeah. One day, I was truly driving in my car, flipping through my phone, and that's when I discovered Teach Better Talk, the podcast. Swear to God, listening to that gave me hope beyond teaching, beyond education, but hearing stories about people that have truly overcome things and realize that there is that niche, there are people out there,
Mhm.
it transformed so much for me. And that's one of the reasons I say I'm this groupie, because yeah, educationally, you guys are killing it. You're doing amazing things. But I only bring people onto this podcast that have truly transformed me personally. And that's why I reached out to you, is because you've had a profound impact on me personally and have helped me overcome things. It's one thing to realize, yeah, people out there have it a whole lot worse. There are bigger shots and there are bigger injuries and all of that.
Yeah.
But to know that other people have overcome things in their world, in their life, and have found success,
Mhm.
and they embrace where they came from. They don't shy away from it. They embrace their struggles. They embrace those moments of weakness, but they also celebrate their successes. That's what I truly love about the Rae story, and the hug heart thing. That's what I feel about you. So thank you just for being you and telling your story personally and professionally, because it makes an impact on a lot of people.
I have no words. I'm so appreciative. I'm so glad that something we did is bringing something to other people. That's the whole point. We're trying to
Absolutely.
be helpful. So I love it. I'm so
Well,
glad.
you're doing it. Keep doing it. Keep shaking up the world. Keep changing it, and keep helping everybody teach better. You're doing awesome.
Slowly but surely, right?
That's it.